Alright lads, so yesterday we had the grand reveal of the 7th anniversary characters, the first one being Uryu and the second character being Ichigo. Both characters look really cool and I'm already a big fan of the design choices for these particular characters, and today we're here to break down the gameplay to let you lads know what skills these characters might actually have just based off the gameplay alone, because we do not have full confirmation of what skills these characters will have, but we will find that out in a couple of days time. And when we do find out, I will definitely be talking about it, so make sure you lads subscribe. And for today, because obviously 7th anniversary hype is in full effect, let's try and hit 777 likes. Yesterday we set a like goal, we absolutely smashed it, so if you want to do the same today, that would definitely be really appreciated. Addition to that, before we even do jump into the gameplay, I also need to clarify that this is development footage. There is a small chance that something shown here could be a tad bit different when we get the full reveal in a couple days time, so do understand that, because last year for the 6th anniversary reveal, we also had Aizen shown to not have Captain Killer, but when he was fully revealed, he actually had Captain Killer. So there's a few things you need to understand, that we are going under an assumption here just based off the gameplay, and some things could actually change when the characters officially get revealed. So do keep that in mind. So starting off the breakdown, firstly, let's talk about the new Ichigo. Ichigo looks to be a mind character with the Arrancar kill ability. The quest they are demonstrating this Ichigo is the Power Baragon raid, where you are up against both Arrancar and also Hollow enemies, and in this case, Ichigo only has killer effect against the Arrancar enemies. So we can confirm from the get-go that he does have an Arrancar killer, does not have Hollow killer, and at the same time, he also does not have an Espada killer. When they show him using his Soul Bomb, you can see that the Baragon does take around the same damage as normal Arrancar enemies, so if he did have an Espada killer, Baragon would be taking significantly more damage, 40% more damage to be exact. So because Ichigo is doing the same amount of damage to Baragon as the Arrancar enemies, he does also not have an Espada killer. As what that second killer could be, we unfortunately don't know, but again, we will find out in a couple days time. Moving away from his attribute and killer combinations though, let's have a look at the attacks. For starters, you can see straight away that he does appear to be able to inflict both weakening and also paralysis on every single attack. That right there is actually really good. His SA1 appears to be a shockwave type of attack, not fully confirmed because this is the first time that we're potentially seeing this type of attack. Normally shockwave attacks are for an SA2, in this case it appears to be an SA1, which is kind of interesting. You can tell by the animations it does appear that it does do damage below him and pushes the enemies away, and it does hit quite a few times. His SA2 is going to be a distant AoE into a tracking vortex, basically being the third time in a row now that an anniversary character does have this type of strong attack. It's literally the best strong attack in the entire game, and this is already setting up Ichigo to be one of, if not the best character in the entire game. And then his SA3 does appear to be a full screen strong attack. So that's the attacks. Now let's talk about what skills he might actually have. For starters, you'll notice instantly that he does appear to have the spiritual pressure boost. So when this character does inflict status augments, he will get an 80% stat boost to his spiritual pressure stat. Very good skill, especially in combination with his SA2, which is basically ensuring that you're going to be non-stop inflicting status augments. Secondly, it also does appear that Ichigo has Frenzy +1, as when he does use that SA2, the Vortex part does hit twice on a lot of different enemies. So he doesn't appear to have Frenzy +2, but Frenzy +1 and the spiritual pressure boost is definitely good enough, especially if he has any other way to increase his damage. For example, does he have Berserker? Well, from the damage numbers that I was able to look at the gameplay and comparing it to the characters that I currently have, it appears that Ichigo is going to have around a 40% Berserker, which is already great. Frenzy +1, spiritual pressure boost, and also 40% Berserker is already a good combination for him to be one of the hardest hitting characters in the entire game. And as a reminder, again, he also does have weakening, so that's going to increase his damage output, and it does appear that he also does do more damage to both weaken and also paralyzed enemies. There are multiple times where enemies are inflicted with paralysis / weakening, and instead of doing 50% more damage, he does around 70% more damage. So it does appear that he is going to come with the skill at 20% more damage to both paralyzed and also weakened enemies, which is the first time we've seen this. Very interested to see if it's going to be one skill or two skills. Hopefully it's one skill, but at the same time it could just simply be more damage to weakened enemies. Another skill that we can see that he does have is Guard Break. A lot of the times throughout the entire gameplay, he does not need to break enemy guard once. So he's pretty much confirmed to have Guard Break, but the big question now is what skill is going to come alongside that. Since he is an anniversary character, I don't see them just simply giving him Guard Break. I can definitely see him going down the route of getting Marauder, or in this case, because he is a ranged character, Sharpshooter, but at the same time, there was a data mine skill a while back that might make its first introduction in this particular character, where you have both Guard Break and also 100% chance to hit hidden enemies. In my opinion, I don't think it's that great of a skill because you can just give the character that with bonus abilities and or accessories, so personally I'd rather him go down the route of getting Sharpshooter. But he definitely does have Guard Break, so he's either going to have Sharpshooter or he's going to have that potential new skill. And then the last skill that we can decipher from this entire gameplay is Innovator and also Immobilizer. It's currently unknown if it's a new skill or if it's just one and it applies both of them, but if you don't know what that skill is, essentially every 5 seconds, Ichigo is going to have a 12% chance to inflict status ailments. And that's the crazy part, because again, keep in mind he does have the spiritual pressure boost, so this is going to be the first time where we see those two skills in combination on one particular character, and this is almost going to always guarantee Ichigo to constantly have the spiritual pressure boost. He's going to be able to get it without even doing any damage to enemies. And that right there is kind of crazy if that is the case. The reason why we are saying this is because at points in time in the gameplay, you can see that enemies have been inflicted with a status ailment, and because of the nature of the quest where you're probably going to one-shot everything, even with no accessories, as you can see in the gameplay, Ichigo is one-shotting everything he absolutely touches. Why are there enemies that are inflicted with status ailments, and you can see they haven't taken any damage? So again, you can also add to the list of skills for this particular character that he will have Immobilizer or Innovator, or both in one skill. So that right there is also interesting, and it's going to be a definitely cool way to apply or proc the spiritual pressure boost on this particular character. And with that said, that's basically all I was able to decipher from this particular gameplay. I'm not sure if I did mention it, but it also does appear that Ichigo has 14% recharge, as his strong attacks are coming back a tad bit faster than what it would come back if he was a 12% recharge character. So on your screen right now is a quick recap on the Ichigo character of what I was able to tell just from the gameplay alone, and at the same time it's also worth mentioning that at no point in this entire gameplay was Ichigo at full stamina, so we can't confirm if he does more damage at full stamina, which is something that is definitely a possibility with this particular character. That is yet to be seen, and again we'll find out in a couple of days time. So with that said, now with Ichigo out of the way, let's start talking about Uryu, who's also a very interesting character. So for starters, Uryu is a speed character with 12% strong attack recharge as a soul trait, and unfortunately we have no idea what killer he does have. In this case, Uryu is being used against the Power Aizen raid, so we can confirm what killers he doesn't have, but we can't confirm what killers he does have. In this case, we can say with certainty that Uryu does not have Hollow or Soripa killer. The enemies he is going against are Hollows, and the boss, in this case Aizen, is a Hollow / Soripa. He does not at one point in this entire gameplay have killer advantage against anyone, so we don't know what killer he does have, but again we can cross off the fact that he does not have Hollow or Soripa killer. Looking at his attacks though, we can see that he does have Weakening and also Drain on every single attack, which is already a great combination, pretty much the best combination of status ailments to have. This is going to make him hit hard and also have really great survivability, so absolutely already setting off to be a great character here. His SA1 is, because of the nature of the way they use this strong attack, we can't tell for certainty, but it does appear to be a beam forward. Whether that's a 3000 length beam forward to the likes of 6th Anniversary Aizen, which hopefully is the case, that's my current guess, that it is a 3000 length beam, but at the same time it could be a beam forward that's similar to someone like Safui Retsu, a short beam in front of them, which is also good in its own right, but personally, you'd rather have that 3000 length beam, which is definitely the route I can see them going down and getting him that really good best strong attack 1 to the likes of 6th Anniversary Aizen and also Spirits after with Retsu. His SA2 appears to be a lunge forward, does appear to have some good range, and he also does have a full screen strong attack 3. Of course, I didn't mention with Ichigo, but it pretty much is given that he does appear to have Havoc plus 20%. Since both Ichigo and Uryu are SP characters, it's almost a given they're going to have 20% Havoc. That's why I didn't mention it just yet, but just for the sake of the video, yes, they do appear to have Havoc, right? In addition to that though, Uryu does also appear to have the debuff Soul Bomb. So as you can see there, when he does use a Soul Bomb, it does apply the down symbol, and at the same time the attack itself also has the debuff effect. As a Soul Bomb, the debuff effect does lower their enemy's defense by 80%, so it's a massive damage increase. Do keep that in mind. In Epic Raid, this Uryu is going to be able to hit very, very hard, especially because it does appear that he does have Bombardment. And the reason why we can tell that is because when comparing Ichigo's Soul Bomb damage to Uryu's Soul Bomb damage, you can see that Ichigo is hitting around 40% more than Uryu. Even without killer effect, Ichigo is constantly hitting around 4k harder than Uryu, as he's hitting around 10k. So it does appear that Uryu is going to have bombardment, and the big question now is he going to have bombardment +1 or bombardment +2, because keep in mind that was a skill data mined a while back, and that very well could be the first time we're seeing it on this particular character. A character with weakening, bombardment +2, and also the debuff effect. This right here is going to be one of potentially the hardest hitting character Soul Bomb in the entire game, and a great asset to use in something like Guild Quest and or Epic Raids, where you're just going to be doing so much damage on that particular Soul Bomb. Moving away from the attacks though, having a look at what skills he might actually have, we can see almost with certainty that Uryu is going to have Frenzy +2. It's almost a given here. Nowadays, especially for an anniversary character, from the looks of it, you're either going to have Frenzy +1 with the Spiritual Pressure boost, or you're going to have Frenzy +2. In this case, Uryu appears to have Frenzy +2. There are times where you can see him potentially hit 3 times. Again, it's kind of unsure. I'd say 99% confirmed that Uryu is going to have Frenzy +2, especially because he isn't shown at any point in the gameplay to have the Spiritual Pressure boost, so Frenzy +2 on this character just makes complete sense. Alongside Frenzy +2, it does appear that he has around, again, once more, around a 40% Berserker. With Frenzy +2 is going to be really good, especially because he also has another way to increase his damage output, which we'll talk about in a minute. The next skill appears to be Guard Break. At no point in time does this character ever need to break guards, so just like Ichigo, it's unsure if he's going to have Marauder or if he's going to have that new skill, which is Guard Break and also hit enemy chance 100%. Either way, both of them will be good, but we can confirm with certainty that he does have Guard Break. It's just unsure what other skill is going to come alongside Guard Break. In addition to that, the last skill that we can decipher or tell from this particular gameplay, and this very well could be bait by RNG, but I think it's almost a given here that he is going to have an increased chance of inflicting status ailments against power enemies, or potentially every character in the game, but let's just play it safe and say power enemies. Now, the reason why we say that is because every single time this character uses a strong attack, literally, if you watch the gameplay, every time he uses a strong attack, he is healing himself back up and inflicting weakening. So just with that many examples of him basically non-stop applying status ailments, it's safe to say that he is going to have that increased chance of inflicting a status ailment. Now, because again, you can see that he doesn't have killer against anyone, it's also safe to say that it isn't against a specific killer, because he doesn't have killer here. So it's very likely that it is going to be against every power enemy, which is already a great skill on this particular character, as he already has weakening and drain. It's going to be a great way to stay at full stamina, and overall he is setting up to be a very powerful character. Now, let's talk about the elephant in the room, the boost gauge. As you can see, when Uryu is walking around, there is a gauge onto him that is slowly building up, and we did talk about this skill a couple days ago and what it could be. From the looks of it, in this gameplay, it's more damage, because there is one point in this entire gameplay, in this short segment of gameplay, where the boost or the gauge has been completed and it is full. It has a glowing effect, and you can see a pretty big damage difference. And again, keep in mind, this character potentially has Frenzy +2 with 40% Berserker, and he's almost able to double his damage when the boost gauge is full. As you can see here, without the gauge being full, on a critical attack with that SA3, he's hitting around 1,500 damage. But then you look at the one time where the gauge is full, and he's now doing significantly more damage. On a critical attack, he's hitting around 2,500, and I believe there's also another attack where he doesn't even hit a critical, and is able to get around 2,200 damage. So from the looks of it, again, just from my numbers, not 100% confirmed, but he definitely does do more damage when he is at max gauge potential. It looks like he gets a extra 60% Berserker when that gauge is full. So potentially, Frenzy +2, 40% Berserker, and also 60% Berserker. That right there is kind of cracked. He is going to be hitting very, very hard with insane survivability too. At the same time, looking at the gauge once more, what we can see here, if you're wondering how to maybe build it up, for example, from the gameplay, it's kind of unsure because it's all over the place. We can't really see how consistent the gauge does build up. But what we can see is that there are 5 circles right next to the gauge that actually resembles our 5 buttons that we have in the bottom right of the screen. The big button represents the Night Attack, and then the other 4 are the 3 Strong Attacks and Soul Bomb. Now in this case, the Strong Attack and Soul Bomb button are glowing orange, but the Nab button isn't. So what I can deduce from this particular part is that The Night String doesn't increase the gauge, but the strong attacks are. Every time you use a strong attack or soul bomb, you are going to be increasing the gauge. And in fact, the only time we ever see the gauge at completion is when he does use a soul bomb. So maybe, and it would kind of make sense that is the case, when you do use your soul bomb, you get a pretty big boost to the gauge, and that is why it was at full completion. And because of the nature of the UI, it also could set up for future Night characters to get this particular boost, where they do get the gauge by using their Night String. And that would be kind of interesting that this gauge button or gauge mechanic can actually be used in two different ways. So kind of interesting. Again, we'll find out full information about this Uryu in a couple of days time. So a quick recap once more, as we did with Ichigo. Uryu is a speed character who does not have Hollow or Sorry kill ability. He has a 12% recharge soul trait with a Beam SA1, SA2 Lunge, and a full screen SA3. All of his attacks inflict weakening and drain, and his soul bomb does appear to have the debuff mechanic. For his skills, he looks to have Frenzy +2 with a 40% Berserker. Guard Break, currently unknown if it's going to come with Ignore range resistance or hit enemy chance 100%. It appears to have Bombardment, unsure if it's going to be +1 or +2, potentially +2. Has increased chance to inflict Statism against power enemies, and also does have this boost gauge mechanic where at full completion it appears to increase his damage by around 60%. So with that said, lads, that was basically the breakdown for the two new 7th anniversary characters. Both of them already from the get-go, just from what I was able to deduce from this entire gameplay, are already setting up to be some of the best characters, if not the best characters in the entire game. A lot of cool mechanics and gameplay choices for these two characters that I actually can't wait to see how it's actually going to work out. So I'm excited. Hope you lads are too. In the comments below, let me know what you lads think about these two characters already, just from the gameplay alone. Personally, for me, I think strong attack wise, they all look great. Gameplay choice, I think they're going to be both really fun characters. Can't wait to try and get my hands on these two. They're two characters that I'll definitely be using quite a bit, and I'm excited. July 23rd is when they do drop, so make sure you lads definitely have your orbs ready. With that said, hope you lads enjoyed the video, and I'll see you lads next time. Peace.